In this series of DVDs, we're going to talk about a lot of components of the square-to-square method, but the most important is to always start with a good grip. Now, there are really basically three types of grips that we use as we learn to play the game. It's the 10-finger grip when we're young and we don't have very big hands. Then we have the interlocking grip where you interlock the index finger of your left hand with your little finger of your right hand. Again, that's mainly for players who have small hands. That's the grip that Jack Nicklaus used, and he was pretty successful with that grip. But most players use the Vardon grip. And the Vardon grip is just where this little finger overlaps that index finger rather than interlocking with that grip. Now you want to take the golf club and you really want to act like you're shaking hands with it. So we've reached out here and we've shaken hands with this left hand, and then we reach in there to grab the other one and shake hands with it. And you'll notice these V's go up to the right shoulder. So that's the method. You shake hands with the club like this. Now we don't come in there. I see a lot of grips where their hand is way under like this. Well, would you walk up to somebody and shake hands? Looks like you're asking them for a quarter or something. So you want to keep this where this hand comes in and everything stays fairly neutral, going up to your right shoulder. And that way we keep that square face. It's much easier to keep that face square with that type of grip. The grip is the most important thing in your golf swing. If you don't have a good grip, it's going to be very hard to use the methods that we're going to be teaching in this swing. So let's try to work on that Vardon grip. Turn the club back with it and keep it square. It's always going to work for you if those hands are neutral. I want to show you now some of the faults of a bad grip versus a good grip. Part of the problem is that when this hand is too weak on the club, you see a lot of players that'll get it underneath like this, then this is very hard. It's much harder in the square-to-square method to get the club up here. In fact, it almost goes over the top and causes you to lay the club off. Or if, on the other hand, if you've got the right hand too strong, the same thing is there again. We talked about that trying to shake hands, but a lot of you put it here, and when you get it up here, again, you're laid off and it causes you to come through and hook the ball. So we don't want this right hand to get too high on the club either, because there again, if you try to take the club back in these motions, you'll feel the stress in your hands. So try to get this club neutral. And that's what we call, this is the neutral position. Sometimes you have grips that even have lines here that'll actually show you where to put your hands. There are practice grips that are what we call the perfect grip that you can acquire at your pro shop or sporting goods store that will help you. You can get a practice club and put that grip on there and then turn the club, and then you get up here and now the club is in the square position. So as long as you have it in that neutral position, it's going to be much easier to turn it in the square position and pull it through and hit better shots. But if you've got a bad grip, it just complicates everything you're going to learn. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about the takeaway in the square-to-square method. Basically what we're looking at, and we're going to use this, again, alignment stick, is that the takeaway in the square-to-square is going to have this club on this line longer. The modern method would have it coming off of there very quickly and rotating back. So the square-to-square method, out, down the line, the club comes right here and contacts the ball, but look, it continues on down and then it comes off the line. The modern method is more of in, out, off, so you're not on that line very long. So the club, again, comes up the flagstick, drops back in, catches it on line, and works through it. What we don't want you to do is to be a roller. We don't want you to have this swinging door that's going to be flapping like this. It's too hard to do. It puts too much stress. You remember we talk about stress up here in our hands when the club's laid off. That's stress. I'm having to hold this club in my right hand. So we want to keep it up high where it's together, and now you don't feel all this stress in your swing. So the higher it is, see, there's no stress there. And then we come down that line and through the shot. When you roll it again, see, you make this motion here, and it's just not going to work because you can't ever swing the door all the way back to the doorstop, so to speak. You swing through it too much like this. So again, we set up, keep it high. It just doesn't get any better than that. That's a lot of fun to hit good, solid shots because you're keeping that club face square. Work on that, and we'll see what happens. Now, in this square to square method, I want to talk to you about changing lanes, as I call it. When you get over the golf ball and you're trying to get this club square, we're going to get it back and up, more vertical. But the reason we're doing that is we want to stay on that same lane as we come down and into the ball. When you use more of the modern method, a lot of the players these days tend to take it inside, lay it off, and now watch what happens. It's laid off a little bit, and there's where the stress comes in. It gets into your wrists, forearms, knees, hips, whatever it is. Okay, so when you change that lane, you've got to get back over here where you'd want to be. So we don't want to be jumping back and forth. Okay, we want that club to come up and vertical, drive back through the ball, through and up again. The changing lanes is just, that's what happens when you get in here and you come back too flat, and now you dip the shoulder this way and you come through and you cross over it, and all these other little factors come in to causing the shot to be poor. So stay vertical, up, and straight through. You just won't hit a lot of curveballs. You'll be known as a fastball pitcher. You're going to hear me talk a lot about the vertical part of the swing. The reason I want to talk about that all the time is I want to keep this club and away from your body. I want to keep it up high so that you don't get stuck with the club way back here behind you and laid off and all this stress trying to get back to the hitting area. So we want to stay as vertical as possible, up, and then clear these hips. You've got to get your legs out of the way so when you come down, you're in this hitting position. If the club is trying to come back from here and you haven't cleared these hips, what's going to happen? We're going to have that what we call casting, where you kind of throw the club down at the ball and you get a very errant shot. So vertical. Vertical is the key word here. Take it up and finish the shot. Think about that so that you don't get yourself locked up, but vertical and through, nice tempo, makes for another good shot. Want to talk to you a little bit about the restricted turn in the square method. We're trying to get this restricted so that we can control the golf club, so that we don't get, again, stuck way back here behind us. We can't have that sort of Sergio Garcia wildness where we're way back here and trying to get into the hitting area. Because we're on the back nine of our career, everything, again, is a little more restricted. So we've got to control this golf club and take the shorter swing up, down, and through. And then, again, once again, you got to have this great balance. Balance, and with the restricted swing, will help you hit the ball much, much better. So, again, club head is square, restrict. See, it's only going to go about this far. You know, we can't get around here and lay it all off and create all these problems that we might have again with injuries. But we want to keep it restricted. And then all you do from this position, you just explode everything. This moves and all of this follows through the shot. And if everything works properly, that ball is going to go straight. The main reason we want to restrict the swing is to help us protect the body from getting further injuries as we get on the back nine of our career. These are the things that are caused by trying to overswing the golf club. If you look at the modern swing, and we talk about how deep these players turn and they get all this stress in their shoulders, in their lower back, in their knees. I mean, if you just stand here and you try to turn all the way around and twist your knee, you can feel all the stress that goes up and down your leg. So by taking this restricted swing where we're a little more controlled, the club is coming up the line and we're staying, again, once again, square, and then we come up and have this good balance, all this balance does is it protects you. If you overswing and you have poor balance and you fall off, the next thing you know, you got a bad ankle, you got another bad knee, and we know that those types of injuries totally restrict you from playing very well. So we want to go with the restricted swing up the line. But you see that balance? This right here has no stress on it. So try to de-stress your golf swing by restricting it and keeping the club high and down the line. Now in the restricted method, we're going to focus on this shoulder because we want this shoulder to move off about 60-degree angles here. In the modern method, they would want this thing moving up and making this huge turn. Well, we can't do that on the back nine of our career. We've got to shorten this up, restrict it, and make sure that this shoulder just gets on about a 60-degree angle to where then we can return the club without a lot of movement and down and through the shot. So think about your left shoulder only moving so much, about 60 degrees to the golf ball, down and through, and you'll play better. Okay, now we've talked about what it's like to take the club back and get it in the correct position. But let's talk about the downswing. What happens when we get it up there, and what happens when we want to get the club back down and square through the ball? Basically, this is what happens. We set up to the shot. We want to keep the club in what I call keeping it in your lane. In other words, that's this line that we're drawing as we take it back. We set it up here, push it up as on the vertical plane that we want to try to get to. And then we're going to try to stay right in that same line, that same lane as it comes down. And see, the club has square. It gets square about right here. We go through and strike the ball, continue on up, and the club folds in this manner. Now that's the correct downswing. We want to accelerate it from that 3/4 position. And this is the way I learned to play golf. This is what made me hit the ball as straight as I did. I won greens in regulation one year for the most greens hit. Obviously, I won the straightest driver of the decade. These are the techniques that let me play some great golf and win some championships. So let's see what it looks like when we're, again, look at the downswing. We're going to stay right on the same plane. Boom. That ball accelerates and has got good ball flight. So remember, all right, keep the club head in the lane. Don't move it out over it. Don't move it under it. Keep it in the same line. If I had a piece of chalk here on a chalkboard, I'd just be chalking right over that line. Okay, now some of the faults of a poor backswing can look a little bit like this. We call this the chopping wood method, and that's where you pick the club just straight up. Now look what happens. We're out of our lane. The club just kind of comes up and we swing down on it. The other method, of course, is trying to turn your body too much, overturn, put all this stress on you, and you come through and you hit some wild shot out to the right or left. Or of course the famous lane change is the casting. You get here, you throw the club at the ball in this fashion. That may be good for catching bass, but it's not for hitting golf balls. So what we're wanting to do is, again, keep that thing on plane, keep it through. And if you do that, it won't look like this. I know you've seen a lot of those kind of shots, and they are no fun because you got to go back and hit it again real quick. Okay, this is my favorite part of the square to square zone, and that's the impact area. That's the area that where the club head is going to try to get on that squared line and drive through the hitting area and get that great impact. That's where you're going to get some power. I'm going to show you how to do it. We're going to set up. We've talked about the impact zone being affected by, are we in our square upright position, or are we going to lay it off back here like we talked about in the modern swing? Well, the modern swing is not going to work for this impact area that we're working on right here. It's just not going to do it because you can't do it. It's hard. You're too tight. Your swing is not as loose as it needs to be. But when we apply all the principles that we've done so far, and that is get this club in this square hitting zone right here. See how square that club comes into the ball, goes on through the ball, stays on the target, and then comes up into this fold position. Very important to get the club coming up the line and folding. So the impact is going to be affected by how well we set the club up here at the top and how we clear these hips and have all of this follow through the impact zone. Let's watch and see what we got here. Base is square, good balance, club laterally, up. Oh man, that feels so good when you strike the ball solid like that. You can do it too. I want to show you why I think my square to square method is far better than the modern day swing. When you've got the club up here in a square motion and in the square position, look how long I can hold that club head where it will come right back in to the ball and hit the ball very square. See, as you turn like that? Well, the modern day swing, guess what we do? We roll our wrists this way. We go back here and we try to load big time. Now, I'm coming back through the swing like this. Here I come. Look at that face. It's wide open. I got to get it back to square. Well, I can't quite get it back to square as long as I have it in this square to square position. Okay, can you see that? This is square. This is opened up. All right? Every time I flash this club open, I got to close it. So if you were sitting at home watching me and say, all right, when is it closed? It'd be hard to pick exactly when I had it closed. Now, if you don't get to play and practice every day, there's no way you can master this method. There just is no way. With the square to square method, by playing limited amount, you can still get this club to come in here square. It'll come through longer and then finish the shot. So we'll keep working on square to square. I'll give you a few more tips that'll help you. Now, one of the key points in the square method is the position of this left hand in the golf swing. If we took a ruler and we put it from this knuckle down your arm, it would be perfectly straight. We don't ever want to break that ruler. And what I've put on today is this special glove that really keeps this area of your hand where it's going to be perfectly straight. It's a glove made by the Skills Company. It's called a Smart Glove, and it helps you get into that position. Now, if you want one of these, we're going to have them on our website that you can purchase from us, but it's a great little tool for learning to hold the club correctly in the square method. Now we take this, and you can see as I go back, it will not, it won't let me break this way, and this is what we talked about, is you don't want to break this down. So this stays perfectly straight, keeps it in that position, and look, that club head just doesn't move. And that's the whole key to this square method, is keeping that club head square to the ball. And this is what you do. You'll put one of these on, and it's a great, great little practice. Well, that makes it almost like cheating in a way, but it just keeps that hand where you can't possibly cup it. It's going to help you play better. Well, as I said, this is really a great training aid for this position that I want your hands to be in. But let me show you what happens. When you break this down, and like I said, this will actually keep you from doing it. But when you cup this at the top, now you're going to probably end up rerouting the golf club of, you know, as I've talked about the casting motion, and it's going to cause you to come in and hit behind the ball, or to come up too quick and hit the ball thin and hit a bladed shot. So you've got to keep this position, and this is the best training aid I've seen for holding that wrist nice and square again. Now, you can even hit shots like this, just short shots, so you can see how square the club can stay on the line. Because the square method is going to have the club on the swing plane probably at least this long, whereas the new methods these days are more like this. So which do you want, this or this? Now, one of the things I like to teach a lot of young players especially is it's important to have a routine. You need a good routine when you're getting ready to hit a golf shot. You will never watch me hit a shot on the tour, the Champions Tour, anywhere without going through a pre-shot routine. That's nothing that takes very long, but you just have to be ready to go through your routine. Like a lot of times I get behind the ball like this. I like to walk into it. I like to look at my target out here, and then I set up, and that's my routine. I usually take a couple of looks and I take it back and boom, I go through the shot. Now I first learned this by going out and watching Johnny Miller when we used to call him the Desert Fox. He was a guy that could always seem to put the ball right to the target, right on the right distance. And that's so important. Now, a lot of players can hit it straight, but they can't hit it to the right distance. So you need to know, one, how far you hit it, but a lot of it is based on having a good routine. So whatever your type of way that you can come up with a routine, you ought to do it the same way every time. I take the club, basically I grab the club from my caddy, I step back a couple of steps, I look at the target, I look down at the ball, and then I walk into the shot, still with my eyes focused on where I'm going to go. Set up once, twice, swing at it, it's in the hole. But that's what you have to do to be a consistent player, to where every time you go out, I have guys say, well, how do you go out and you shoot in the 60s 4 rounds? I said, well, I didn't change anything. I didn't, some of my mental thoughts might have changed, but basically I stayed right with the same routine. I don't care if I had a 1-shot lead or a 9-shot lead. I never varied. I went through the same thing over and over and over. And that's what great golf is repetition. When you can follow these simple rules of how you might have a good routine, then it's only going to help you to play much, much more consistent. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about the purpose for shooting this video. I'm not going to guarantee it's going to make you the greatest player in the world, because you're always going to have faults that creep into your game, and that's what makes this game so difficult to deal with sometimes. You can feel great and walk out and play bad, and some days you can warm up just awful. And all of a sudden, you get on the first tee, but by applying these methods, it's going to give you a far better chance to play better and to hit it straighter. And I didn't even really talk about, we don't have to play back as we get older. We don't have to play back on the back tees. The PGA of America has a program going now called Play It Forward. We can move up and play the game and have just as much fun. But the most fun part is going to be how you strike the ball. You're going to go out there and think, I can hit the ball straight again. I can hit it solid. It's going to feel good. Now, I'll tell you, the year I won the Los Angeles Open in 1986 at Riviera, I had absolutely the worst warm-up on a Sunday that I've ever had. I walked up to the first tee. My wife was standing there and she said, how'd it feel? And I said, awful. But I stopped and I turned back and looked at her and I said, but I'm going to go for it. And I go out and I make 8 birdies and shoot 63, no bogeys. So you never want to get in your head that there's a premonition that you're not going to play well. Just forget it. All the practice tee is before the round is a place just to loosen your body up. When you step on that first tee, you get focused, you stare down that target line, and it will make you hit better shots because you're using your routine, you're using your mind to say, if I just follow these principles, I'm going to have a better chance to play well. Okay, now you've viewed the entire video. I hope you've had as much fun watching it and you've been able to comprehend the processes of what it's going to take to swing the golf club the square-to-square method. It's going to take a little work on your part, and I don't expect you to all of a sudden come out here and go grip, stance, alignment, vertical, on plane, good balance, good tempo, everything. I don't expect you to get all that the first day you go out. But take the video, watch it a little at a time, go out and work on your grip, work on your posture, work on your tempo, all the functions that are in this video. And if you'll do them in kind of a slow method and kind of try to master one and master another, it's going to bring you a lot of enjoyment. And I hope it brings you as much enjoyment as it has me for 28 years on the tour. Thanks for buying this video. Good luck. One of the important things to ask yourself sometimes about an instructional video is, what are my credentials? Well, I'm a little bit different from some of the great teachers that you might listen to, the Jim Flicks and the Harmons and all those players you see, or teachers, I'm sorry, that you see standing behind the great players. Well, I've played all of these tournaments. I've played the Masters, the Opens, the PGAs, the other tournaments that are so important. And fortunately for me, I've been able to win 12 times. Now, 2 of those were major championships, the Senior PGA and the Tradition. My very first victory was at Harbortown in the Heritage Classic, one that we used to think was kind of the 5th major on tour. I did that back in 1980. Those highlights, unfortunately, are in black and white, not in color today. But it was my very first victory. I'd been on tour about 4 years, but that was when I first realized that the square-to-square method was going to work for me. So I went on to win 3 more times on the PGA Tour. Then I got to the Champions Tour, and it felt kind of odd, but at the end of the year, I'd won 3 tournaments, including that PGA, and was voted Rookie of the Year, beating out Tom Kite and Lanny Watkins. Feels kind of strange to be a rookie at age 50, but I got a nice piece of crystal, and a lot of pride came along with it. I followed it up with another 7 championships and a little over $11 million in earnings. Now, I've spent $12 million, so I'm just about there now financially. But those are the things that I think will differ a little bit from my methods, is that they're proven. They've won. They've been on the big stage, and we've won. So they may sound a little bit different from some of the great teachers, but I think you'll find they're a lot of fun. We'll have some fun watching them, but we'll give you some tips that I can tell you are proven winners. Now, next in the square-to-square method is the alignment. When you go out to a PGA Tour event or Champions Tour event and you're sitting there on the back of the range, again, you're going to see a lot of these alignment sticks. And this is the way players train their eyes to practice with these aids, so that when they step up to the ball, without having, of course, they can't use these on the golf course, but on the practice tee, it gets their eyes where they're looking at the same motion or the same alignment that they want to hit the golf ball on. Now, one way to do it, and Jack Nicklaus was probably the first to point out that what he liked to do was pick out a piece of grass, in this case a golf ball that I've put out here, and line up on a short where he can aim at that. He says it's easier to aim at an object about 3 or 4 feet out in front of you than it is to look all the way down the fairway. But players today use these alignment sticks because it gets them used to trying to put the ball exactly where they want to put it. So what I like to do is I sometimes will pick out a small amount of target here, but I'm more like a pin bowler would be in bowling. But I still line up more to the flagstick or the intended line that I'm going to hit it. Then I walk into the shot and I look and see where I want it to go. And I try to trust myself that I've used these aids on the practice tee and that I can hit the ball right down that line. Now, you'll know pretty fast if you're not lining up correctly, because you know you're going to walk in here and you may go, I think I'm lined up, but look where my feet are. These would be some of the faults of poor alignment, is that my feet would be over here. I still now, if I took my square-to-square movement, it's going to force me to hit it right over here because that's where I'm lined up. So you've got to get yourself where you can know that you're lining the ball where you want to hit it. You kind of walk back here, you look at that short spot, then maybe look up, get ready to hit it. You know your feet are square. This line out here is a little right of where this line is because it's like a railroad track. But take the club high, like this, down that line, over that target line, and toward the flagstick. Try these methods, and it should work for you. Now, in the alignment, this part of the alignment is we use these, what we call the railroad effect. The feet are normally lined up just left of the target. This top rail is pretty much at the target. Now, most amateurs probably over-align to the right most of the time. because that's kind of what they've been taught, that you ought to throw it out there and hook the ball, and they try to roll their hands, and that's all the other parts of the swing that we're trying to change and correct. One of the things I do in the Pro-Ams that I play in each week is that a guy comes to me and he goes, well, I'm hitting it here, I'm hitting it there, and I go, well, let me line you up. I'll line him up every hole for the rest of the day, and all of a sudden he's standing there going, that's the best I've ever played. He said, what'd you change? And I go, I changed your alignment. I just got you to play the natural tendency that you hit to. So instead of trying to aim down the middle of the fairway and slicing it off to the right, all we did on this case was change their alignment. What I'd do with him next time is I'd get him in and work on that square to square method where he didn't have to make so many changes. The more we can bring that pattern in, the better off you're going to hit the shot. So that's the mistake most amateurs make. They just don't ever align properly. Now, it's okay if you're standing out there to hold the club up like this and kind of see where you are. But obviously if you stand like this ball's shooting off into the left trees, or like this too far. So you can do this during a tournament round, but you got to pick it all up and stand up here and hit it right. So you'll see a lot of them try that, and that's probably a lot of the guys that have played with me because I tell them to do this. But again, the feet are going just left of the target. We're going to set up. Good alignment makes for good shots. Okay, let's talk now about the next part of the square to square method, and that would be your posture. You've got to have good posture in the golf swing in order to make the right shot. Now, good posture begins with where do we put our knees and our legs. So we want to be kind of like a shortstop in baseball. You want to get your knees flexed just enough where you're able to move and rock from left to right in the golf swing. So it's very much like a shortstop would get ready to receive a base hit or something, and he'd be in this position. He wouldn't have his legs perfectly straight because look, he couldn't move, he'd be restricted. So you get down here in this position to where you can roll back to the right, roll to the left, and just have this sort of almost a swaying motion, but we know we don't want to sway because we're going to be turning. So here's what it would look like from here. You get a good knee flex, your back is straight, you set up. Now you're ready to make this turn, and these knees are nice and flexible, and we can move through the ball. Now let me show you what that's going to look like. You don't want to stand up because what's going to happen? We're going to take the club and pick it up on some crazy line back here in the backswing. All right? Good flex, good turn. Ball goes straight, or it should go straight. So work on those knees, work on having just a nice setup, turn through, and always try to have in the good posture. You come up where you have good balance, you're on your toe, this foot's taking all the weight transfer. With good posture, you're in the next phase of hitting the ball straight and in play. Now we talk about this shortstop position where these knees are flexed. What this is going to create is we're going to get the club coming straighter up because we're in a good position. We're not bent over. Now this is one of the worst faults is we see players who bend over, and what's the first thing they do? They rear up to try to hit the golf ball. You can't do that. It's going to mess up the swing. The other one we talked about were the straight legs. Same thing, you come up here and you're not real sure, you think you need a longer golf club because you can't get over to the ball. That should be the first clue that that's a fault. So we get in this flex position, then the club comes up the line and down and through. So just remember, you need a little bit of knee flex. Don't get it too much and don't get any at all. If you do those two things, that's the major faults of a bad posture. Next, we're going to talk about the 3/4 swing versus the full swing in the square method. Now, obviously, we're not young anymore. So I want to show you why the 3/4 swing will work best for you. We're going to take this golf club and we're going to get it to this position here, what we call the 3/4 position, where the hand stays square and then the club will move down the line and clear and you'll get a better turn, and you'll pick up a little speed as you come down. Now, we've done some studies with kinesiology and things, and they've proven really that the 3/4 swing works as opposed to the longer swing. But we know we have to go with the 3/4 swing because we just don't have the flexibility that a J.B. Holmes has on the PGA Tour. Whereas a Tom Lehman, he has kind of a 3/4 shorter motion, but he still hits the ball out there plenty far to play just about any golf course that he has to compete on. So we're going to have basically where the club turns square and back, and it stops at about this position. This is the 3/4 move. It doesn't drop, doesn't get you out of position again, but it keeps you nice and compact and with good motion, good balance. Again, you're going to be able to hit this ball much, much straighter. Let me show you what happens when a senior type player or senior player tries to make a full swing and you just can't do it. You're going to get back here and this club is going to go and try to turn, and you're going to be so off balance, or you'll be in what I call a reverse pivot, and then you're going to struggle to get that club back into position, which is going to create some type of errant shot. That's why we've got to set up and go with the 3/4 swing. It's going to look a little bit like this. You can still hit it solid and straight, control the ball. A lot more fun, as I always say, a lot more fun to play golf this way. Okay, we've learned all this backswing, lateral movement up top, keeping the hands square. Now we're going to get into the finish of the swing. How we want the club to come up in this fashion, and as I go down, I'm clearing my hips. I'm into the hitting area square. As I come up, now I want to come up and fold like this. I want this elbow to be lateral to the ground, okay? We're going to fold this thing up where it finishes high, because we don't want to finish the club around, and we don't want to finish the club kind of out like this. You've actually seen players that, you know, gave it one of these like they're pointing where they want the ball to go. So let's keep this club head as we come through, lateral movement of your hips and through. But this is the way I want you to finish. I want you up on your right toe. I want all your weight balanced over your left side, okay? So this is the finish of the swing. It goes up, we clear, square, and fold. Does that look easy? Well, it's not, so you'll have to practice. Okay, now I've shown you the correct way to have the proper follow through, but let me show you what happens when you get a little bit out of alignment and you get to seeing shots that look, or finishes that kind of look like this. You know, that may work on Dancing with the Stars, but you can't dance around like that in the golf swing. Some of you get here, you fall through, and then you take 2 or 3 steps. Again, a bad fault. You only do that when in real extreme conditions, but you always want to stay centered and keep this follow through where it always comes up to this point. And that's why we use the back of this foot right here. It's kind of there as our balance meter, so to speak. And when you finish up here, it helps you balance your swing all together. So let's try to always think about staying centered, rotate, push it up, swing through to this nice balanced position. You don't need to be falling back and trying to put 2 or 3 steps into the swing. Okay, now the final piece of the puzzle in this square to square method is how do I finish the swing with the club head square and not wildly off the line. You know, if I'm here and I set up and I turn it back like the young players and all of a sudden I'm over here, I've got more stress on my elbows and my neck and my back. And here's why the square position works far better. And that is, you're going to be up here, you have no stress here, you come up high and finish high. There's no torque in your back and much, although you're still turning your back, you're just limiting all the stress that you get on your body. This way is going to work far better to keep you out of that Advil bottle.